like to call the meeting of the Trumbull WPCA to order. My name is Richard Boggs. I'm the chairman. It is July 22nd, 7:03 p.m. This meeting is being held by video conference via Zoom. Margaret, I'd like to ask Margaret, WPCA administrator, to please call the roll to identify which commissioners are present.
Richard Boggs.
Here.
Andrew Palo.
Here.
John Green. Frank Regnieri.
Here.
Charles Berezin.
Here.
And Scott Thornton.
Yep.
Okay,
If
thanks,
John
Margaret.
Green is not attending, does Scott vote, Jim? I believe so. He's an alternate.
Did you hear
Yes,
the question?
Okay, thank you.
if he's needed for a quorum, yes.
He's not needed for a quorum, no.
No?
No, we have 4.
Oh, okay.
So
5.
Well, Scott, we're still interested in hearing your comments if you have any.
Thank you, Richard.
He doesn't take the place of John Green?
Nobody can.
Yeah, is that even possible? No, I think if we have a quorum, yeah, because when I was an alternate, I don't think I ever voted when there was a quorum in the room, although that probably never happened.
okay, thank you.
All right, I'd like to also note that William Moore, town engineer and sewer administrator, and town attorney James Nugent are also present in the meeting. I'd like to remind everyone again to please identify yourself every time you speak, and where appropriate, provide your title as well, such as WPCA Commissioner. We'd like to try to have one person speak at a time, although sometimes that's a struggle because it's a little bit of a delay. And all votes will be taken by a roll call of the members present by Margaret. Okay, next item, public hearing. I'd like to open the public hearing. It is 7:05 p.m. The public hearing has to do with the WPCA sewer user rates for the coming year. I'd like to ask if there's anyone present who would like to speak with regard to the proposed sewer user rates. Have anyone or anyone that can access anybody who may be trying to get into the Zoom call?
Through the chair, I don't see anyone with their hands up, and if you give them directions in the bottom right-hand corner, they can raise their hand if they want to speak.
Okay. Yeah, so if there is anyone on, although I guess there isn't yet, please use the hand raise so that you can be identified. Not hearing any response. Oh, I did want to summarize the the meeting notice. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but essentially, it's a proposal to modify the sewer user rates, and essentially the sewage treatment fees for the residential as well as industrial commercial users are increasing by approximately 3%. The residential treatment rate is currently $5.74 per CCF, 100 cubic feet. The proposed rate is $5.904. As I said, that represents about a 3% increase. The industrial commercial sewage treatment rate is $6.30 per CCF, and the proposed rate will be $6.490, which is also approximately a 3% rate. There's also a flat treatment rate per quarter, which is not changing. That's $171. And there are unit charges for residential and industrial commercial per unit, and those rates are also remaining unchanged. So I was killing a little bit of time to see if we got any more participants from the general public. And Margaret, do you see any indication of anything?
I do not. I only see 2 attendees, and they do not have their hands up.
Okay. Very good. Then I would like to close the public hearing, since there is no one looking to speak, and it is 7:08 p.m. All right. Next order of business is the approval of the minutes from our previous meeting. I'd like to call for a motion to approve the minutes of June 24th, 2020 as presented.
So moved.
We have a second?
I'll second.
All right, any discussion, any comments? All right, Margaret, please call the roll for approval.
Richard Boggs,
Aye.
Andrew Palo,
Yes.
Frank Regnieri,
Yes.
and Charles Berezin.
Yes.
Passes unanimously.
Okay, very good. All right, next order, number 4, the Kovacs change order for the excuse me, change order number 3 for the Beardsley Pump Station Rehab. Bill has some information for us on that.
Yes, Bill Marr, Town and Trumbull Engineer, WPCA Administrator. Change order number 3 was not transmitted electronically. It was meant to be, but there was a glitch, so it will be in the minutes. Change order number 3, the amount is $72,427.24. Mostly has to do with the major item was $54,000 was the provision of the inline fan and duct work to serve the wet well. That wasn't included in the original RFP. The rest of the items were plus or minus. We got credit for a stockade fence. We got charged for a station naming plaque, $1,974. There was some rock ledge removal in the amount of $6,653.81. There was additional air release valves for the high capacity pumps for bleed off is $2,041.89. We had to replace a catch basin that wasn't in the original scope of $3,259.57. And we revised the station layout slightly to allow for passage from the control room to the pump room without having to go outside. And that was $6,680.72. And as the change order would bring the total contracted price incorporating the change order would bring it to $5,286,706.28.
Oh, where'd it go?
A detailed summary will be in the minutes.
Okay, no, Margaret just had flashed it, so we saw it briefly.
Do you want me to put it back? I'm sorry about that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm wondering if we can email that out real quick just so we can see it. Because I mean, one thing that jumped out at me was $2,000 for the plaque. Like, really?
Okay.
The bronze plaque.
I mean, I
And
remember when we talked about that, we said the cost was going to be minimal.
Well,
So that's a little shocking.
Just trying to find it again.
Bill, this is Frank Regnieri. Is this the last of the change orders, or how many are out there pending that you're aware of?
this should be pretty much the last. The only thing that's coming up yet is there may be a little bit of additional paving that isn't incorporated in this, and some of the minor tile stuff. This is the last of the major change orders.
I'm sorry. Can't seem to get it to open again.
You want to share my screen?
Yes, please, let me undo that because I had it and it's gone.
Yeah, I'd just like to have an opportunity to see it. I don't want to approve anything that none of us have reviewed.
Hang on a minute. Now, how do I share my screen?
Go to the on the bottom, share screen, it's green. And then you should be able to browse.
Can you see it?
Yeah,
Got it.
got it.
Yes.
So there's the first item was $1,974.70 was the plaque. And the credit for the stockade fence is item number 2. And
Did they replace this? Did they replace the stockade fence with something else, something like lower level, or?
They supplemented the existing plaque. This is all new plaque with everybody's name.
Oh, no, I'm talking about the fence.
The fence, we took it out because the fence was around the generator. The generator is so tall that the fence wouldn't never been high enough to block it.
Got it. Okay. All right. I mean, I don't want to get hung up on the $2,000 item, but so, I mean, as far as you're concerned, you've gone through this in detail and you're comfortable that these costs are all reasonable?
Yes, I am.
Bill, this is Frank again. I have a question. Item number 5, how could the fan be designed yet not part of the RFP?
I don't, originally there was, it was an extra that wasn't awarded.
So it was an alternate, an ad
An
alternate?
alternate.
Okay. Thanks.
And then here's the
Has, this is Frank again, has this station, it seems like it's online. I saw that it was paved. Is it fully accepted?
no, not yet. They're still, they're working on doing some concrete floor repairs in the garage portion. They have tile floor to go in yet and some minor electrical for the HVAC that has to be done yet. But we're very close. It's been in operation and everything has been working good.
As long as your pipes hold up.
Yeah. Hey, shh. No negative vibes there. No negative vibes.
Everybody knock on some wood.
Hey, Bill, this is Jim.
Yep.
You said the catch basin was not in the original scope?
It was, we were meant to reuse it, but when we actually got to doing the work over there, it was found to be deficient and we needed to add it to the scope.
Well, I was just wondering, because was the ledge removal related to the catch basin?
No, the ledge removal was to different parts of where it had, some of the ledge was removal for the electric service lines and so forth.
So they're saying that was unforeseen?
Unforeseen.
Yeah, okay.
All right, is that the end of it? Yeah, I guess that is the end of it. See, accept and recommended. Okay.
So,
All right, I guess, I mean, this is a case where, I feel like we should just be relying on our experts, in this case, Bill. Does anybody have any other comments or concerns? I know we didn't have a lot of time to go through that, but I don't know that more time would actually make a difference. None of us are experts in pricing of, this type of work. Except maybe Frank.
What do you say, Frank?
I guess I failed my voir dire, huh? Don't put it on me. I mean, I'm relying on Bill. I wasn't there. So.
I got you. All right. If there's no other discussion, I'd like to call for a motion to approve the change order as submitted in the amount of $72,427.24.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Margaret, please call the roll.
Richard Boggs,
Aye.
Andrew Palo,
Yes.
Frank Regneri,
Yes.
and Charles Brazen.
Yes.
Very good, it's
Thank you.
unanimous.
Thank you. Approved. All right. Next up is the proposed sewer user rates. That was the topic of the public hearing. Is there any further discussion? I know we kind of went through this the last meeting, and I think maybe a little bit the one before that. Any further discussion before we call a vote to approve these rates as submitted?
This, Frank, I guess our only alternative, Jim, was to oppose the rate increase and ask for a hearing in Bridgeport. We didn't do that, did we?
We did not. I did some research on the current contract. And the current contract with the city of Bridgeport includes a waiver of the town of Trumbull's right to appeal the rate increase. And I was a little surprised to see that. I contacted actually Dennis Kukinos, who was the town attorney at the time. He says that was in fact in there intentionally. And that's the story. Now, he thought the previous contract that the town had also contained a similar waiver prior to the start date of the current one. I was not able to get my hands on that one. So I don't know if that was the case or not, but that's what he told me. But yeah, so in theory, Bridgeport can increase and we can't say anything about it. But of course, the rate of increase applies to Bridgeport residents also, who do have the right to appeal. So I think, I suppose in that respect, there is some check on something being done out, excessively, but nonetheless, other than contesting the volume measurement, I'm not using the right terminology, Bill, in terms of measuring the amount of flow, we do have the right to challenge that. But not the actual computation of the rate increase.
Yeah, I mean, that's based on water on the Aquarian rates anyway, right, Bill? So there's Bridgeport doesn't really control that.
Well, they don't, but there's different, no, you're right. I mean, it's not they don't control it, but we do have the right to challenge for whatever reason might affect the amount of flow through the pipes down there. So that would affect our rate, but that's it.
So our flow rate is calculated by what's consumed by the households and businesses?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Bill Maher, Town Trumbull engineer. Yes, we pay Bridgeport based on water consumption, not on what we actually send them.
So when you have rain leaking into the pipes or whatever, we don't pay for that.
Well, we do. There's a maximum flow. I believe it's 4.2 million gallons per day average for the month. If we exceed that, there's a penalty that we pay for that. And the penalty is capped at $125,000 a year. We usually pay that.
I can imagine.
How's that measured?
It's measured, but we actually measure the flow to Bridgeport every day.
Oh, so we have a flow meter.
We have a flow meter.
Okay.
And has Bridgeport already voted on this?
Yes, they have.
So they're already passed and
Yep.
yeah, so.
Yeah, so the basis, all the bases for our rate are set.
It's locked in.
So, all right, well, if there's no other discussion, I'd like to call for a motion to approve the proposed sewer user rates.
Rick Boggs? Oh, I'm sorry, we need a motion.
All right, we need a motion.
I make a motion to approve the sewer rates.
All right, we have a second.
I'll second.
Okay, Margaret, back to you.
Rick Boggs?
Aye.
Andrew Palo?
Yes,
Frank Regneri?
Yes.
Charles Brazen?
Yes.
All right,
Unanimous.
okay. Next up is old business. First item is 38 McDonald Road sewer connection, which we did discuss at the last meeting, and Bill has some updates for us.
Yes, Dennis actually did submit a estimate for the extension. I'm not sure of the exact units that they used.
Bill, why don't you share it to your screen?
That's what I'm gonna get to here.
Okay. While Bill is going to share with the screen, Dan Riccio is here. He is the owner of the property. He's having problems with his audio. Dan, there you go. You
Margaret,
fixed it? You
Margaret,
got-
I'm here. Yeah, I fixed it. I'm on my phone now. I'm sorry about that. And I
No
couldn't hear
worries. I just
anything
wanted to
in the
make
beginning.
sure. Okay,
Okay.
so you fixed it. Thank you.
Margaret, I'm looking for it. Yeah, send it to me again. Okay. You see 38 McDonald Road. Yes. No, I did not. Wait a minute, I think I got it. Can you share it? Okay. Yep. What couple of the, where are we here?
You need to open your screen. There you go.
Screw. It keeps going minimizing there, Margaret. And I'm trying to fix it and I can't. There you go. If you scroll down to the dollar amount, the cost estimate for the 38 McDonald Road. There you go. So go up right there. The applicant submitted a proposal from Burns Construction to construct the sewer main for $51,000. It really doesn't itemize what they were doing for the $51,000. I mean, considering that the portion in the road is between 60 and 70 feet, the 51,000 is awful steep for that. I do recognize the fact that this is unusual circumstances, that it probably should have been included in the original design of the sewer system in that neighborhood, but was omitted. I don't like the idea of the two people sharing the same lateral, but I do recognize that it's extenuating circumstances. I recommend that if the applicant files easements and a restriction in the deed in the town clerk, taking responsibility, sharing responsibility between the owners of 38 and 36 McDonald Road, all the way to the main service line, the main line in McDonald Road, that as long as it was filed in the land records, I think you'd be okay.
Hey, Bill, I need to step away just for a quick second to turn off my dehumidifier, which just kicked in. I'm in the
Yep.
basement. Just give me a second.
Hey,
Hey,
Bill,
Bill, this is Andy.
Yep.
You know, the way I look at this is, you know, as long as Jim Nugent is confident that everything legally can get worked out here, you know, I'm fine with it as well.
There is also the question that assessment would have to be in place for this now too. We'd have to do an assessment.
they'd get the full assessment, this Frank.
Yes, they'd have to pay the full assessment because it's still in the assessment period. The assessment actually for this lot is actually, we did a worksheet up on it. And based on the lot area and the frontage, the assessment would be $15,098.53.
You, this Frank, Bill, you indicated at the last meeting, you thought this would be setting a precedent that we'll have to deal with, you know, constantly from here on
Yes,
out.
there is that risk of that. But in light of that also, if you look at the fact that this lot was actually created back in the 40s, it was a vacant lot that existed at the time of the design of this sewer system. We should have at that time had extended the main.
Yeah, we actually established that precedent previously, and that was what they were referring to when they made this request. So
Yep.
we kind of already let the cow out of the barn. But as Bill said, each one of these things really has had a pretty unique set of circumstances.
Well, I guess my question is, I happened to drive by the lot by accident. It's pretty small, and it looks like the main ends in a manhole. Why can't they just put their lateral into the manhole? I know it's kind of contrary to what a lateral is, which is 90 degrees typically to a main, but why can't they just take their sewer main and go into the manhole on an angle?
Well, they can. That was the question. We talked about that last month, and really what I was looking for from Dennis was the difference between what the solution you just described and what they were proposing. But
I mean,
this 51,000 seems to be everything, including the lateral.
but I don't know about that. Without their estimate, it'd be impossible to tell. They still have to take their 8-inch or whatever size pipe they need coming out of their house and get down to where the existing lateral is. So the only thing they wouldn't be saving is if they could go in on an angle into that manhole. I don't know if they'd be saving, it'd be any more money or not. And you wouldn't have to worry about easements or anything.
Yeah, Bill, can you pull that plan back up that we had last month, or is that buried?
The plan?
Yeah,
Yeah, I can pull that up if you give me a minute.
because I think that'll help.
No, but instead of a shared lateral, they can have 2 separate laterals. They just wouldn't need a main in front of their house. It's a question of Bill.
Well, the main I think is pretty far away. It's not.
Well, it's not as far away as you would think, but it's about
Well,
50.
you were there. I'm just going by what I saw on the plan. But,
Margaret, can you unshare your screen?
Well, while Bill is looking for that, I just want to jump in and say that I did investigate, and it is possible to trade off the assessment for the work to extend the main.
Okay.
There is,
Where's the manhole that ends the main?
Can
the
you zoom in?
manhole that ends,
Can you enlarge that at all, Bill?
Yeah, Bill, hit the plus arrow up at the top there.
plus arrow up the top.
Yep, on the left side, toward the left. There you go.
if you see, can you see where my cursor is? It's right opposite the driveway.
No, so it's quite a ways down.
It's quite
Yeah.
a ways. The angle would be so
Road.
skewed that,
Yeah, they're better off going into a manhole.
yeah.
Yeah, and their solution avoids digging up the street at all. So I think, I feel like it, if they seem to have satisfied Bill that this is enough of a hassle to have to tie into the main or extend the main. We kind of hashed it over. It's not a perfect solution, but it seems to be a better one. And to Jim's point about our ability to trade off the assessment, if it truly is a significantly additional cost to extend the main and connect to the main, even if it's going to be a shared benefit or a shared cost, why? As long as we can live with this solution, it does seem like it's kind of the least bad option. Trying to balance cost savings and future potential headaches.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just would have to be all filed in the land record so that the owners of 38 and 36 are well aware of the fact that they have a joint obligation to the main.
Yeah, and as Dennis explained it last month, they're fully aware of that and prepared to take those steps.
Yep.
And I don't know if you have the ability to speak at this point, or if you have any comments you want to make.
Yes, I do. I can, yep. Oh, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, as you mentioned, we're fully aware that we have to, write up easement language and file whatever needs to be done on the land record to satisfy the town attorney. And so that we would definitely do that.
So let me just interject that if the commission decides to vote in favor to do that, it has to be subject to my review of appropriate easement language to be included and then recorded on the land records.
Of course.
And can I just add and we'd have an assessment just to make sure that we're all in agreement that there'd be an assessment levied against the property?
I think there has to be.
Yep. And Dan, you were aware of that, correct?
Yep, I'm aware of that, and
Okay.
we understand that.
Okay. Any other comments? Because I think we're prepared to make a motion that we approve this connection as it's sketched here, with the provision that the town attorney have the opportunity to review all of the associated easement language. And again, Jim, I'm not sure if I'm saying this correctly, but
Well, my suggestion is that if you approve it, that it be subject to, I'd like to use those two words, subject to my approval, review and approval of appropriate easement language.
okay.
I have a question. This is Chip Bearson.
Sure.
Just wondering if there's a way to document this as to why it's approved, so that when people review it in the future, that when these come up again, that they can go over the reason why this was approved. It's kind of special circumstances and not just a general approval that would be applicable to all cases that are similar to this.
Yeah, I'm not sure how to do that, because really it comes down to cost. And the only reason why anybody would ever make a request like this is to save money.
Well, yeah, but I think it's also due to the fact that the lot actually existed.
Right.
So we don't want to apply this to situations where the lot didn't exist.
Absolutely. Well, also the other big component here is that there is no main, in that, the main stopped short of the lot. So
Yeah.
there was an
believe that's the point.
implication that the main did not recognize this as a buildable lot. And, that was not appropriate at the time. We kind of acknowledged that.
Yeah. And that's the special circumstance that I think needs to be noted, so that if someone looks in the future and they don't have that detail, then, these can become more common, which we're trying to avoid.
I think we should put the language in that we're approving this because the main was terminated short of a lot that was on the land records for the town, and that it should not have been. And that, so that they don't come, the next person doesn't come back in 3 months and say, we approved it here. I mean, this was special circumstance. There was a lot on the town map. The main didn't go far enough because it wasn't at the time approved per the zoning regulations, but it was eventually approved. So I think we need to put that language in there. That is the special circumstance that the newly installed sewer system wasn't extended far enough to a recorded. Jim put the words together.
I think that is correct. We don't want to make this a blanket exception. It requires a circumstance that there was an approved lot and the main was not extended sufficiently far to reach it.
Yes.
Okay, is anybody prepared to make that motion? I can give it a shot if nobody else is. What do you think, Frank? You kind of had 3/4 of it already in your last statement.
I was just throwing out some ideas, I thought.
You just have to add that it's subject to review, subject to approval of the town attorney.
But besides that, is that we're making, we're motioning to approve this because of extenuating circumstances, which in this case was that there was I don't know what you'd call it, a lot on the town map that was approved back in the early 1900s, and that the main, when it was installed recently, wasn't extended far enough. And therefore, to special circumstances, there was a lot, no main, and to avert additional cost to both the town and the developer, was decided to go with this manhole and special arrangement between the two property owners.
And further, that an appropriate easement will be drafted subject to the review and approval of the town attorney. I think that's the motion.
Yes, I motion that.
Okay, I'll ask Margaret. Margaret, did you get all that?
I got it all. I'll put it all together. I had it, and then Jim just reversed the order. I was going to say subject to first, and then, the connection was approved due to extenuating situation.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think the sequence matters, but yeah, I think we're all on the same page. We just want to make sure that it gets documented properly when we go through it. Okay, so I believe we have a motion. I think we all understand what the motion is. It's to approve this installation as on the drawing, subject to the review of the town attorney, and the basis of the motion is all of the items that Frank had identified that make this condition unique. Do we have a second?
Sure, I'll second.
Okay, Margaret, can you call the roll?
Richard Boggs,
Aye.
Andrew Palo,
Yes.
Frank Rigneri,
Yes.
Charles Berezin.
Yes.
Very good. It's unanimous.
All right, thank you. That was actually easier than I expected. Okay, thanks, Dan.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
All right. Next up, sewer usage bill freeze. Bill's got some information. Is Christine with us?
Can we promote Christine Kurtz and Vanessa to panelists, please? Okay. And Margaret, do we have Christine's outline? There you go. So we did a little research into the effects of going back to averaging the winter months usage and using that as a basis of determining the fee to be charged for the summer months to compensate for people watering lawns and washing cars and stuff like that, that doesn't go into the sewer. And as you can see by Christine's look, what happens is that people will have a tendency to use more water, and it will cost us more money, and we'll need to support it additionally. So Christine, if you could just outline your chart, I'd appreciate it.
Sure, no problem. Can you hear me fairly well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So what I have here, the information on the top 3 rows are what your rates are now, or I should say were until your increase. And those are the values that were used in the spreadsheet you see here. Each of the 3 rows designate a type of user, just made up. So an average year, it should say like an average person. The second row is someone who uses water consistently low or tries to conserve, or is like one person living in a home. The last row I'm calling snowbird, which is someone who's away for 2 quarters and then back for 2 quarters and using more water in those summer months. So trying to outline 3 types of people in town. So in the current year, which is the white background area, the first column indicates how much CCF in a quarter is used. So in the average person might use 15 CCF for the first 2 quarters and then 55 in the latter 2. Someone who's consistently low and good about conserving water will use 15 per quarter and so forth. So you can see the totals there. And then the next 2 columns, B stands for Bridgeport. This is what a person from will pay with regards to the Bridgeport portion of their rate, and that's based on their water usage. T is the column representing the flat fee that Trumbull charges. So the average person in this particular year is paying $935 a year, if you can see that total. Then your consistently low person's paying $476, and the snowbird is paying $820. So the bill for these 3 people in this particular year is $2,231. If you start to entertain the idea of going back to how the billing or the water usage is used to calculate your sewer bill, which used to be your 2 quarters that are your lowest, you use that for the 4 quarters for the year. So that average person who had his 2 lowest quarters were 15, if he uses that for all 4 quarters, you can see that he's going to pay for, in the first year, 60 CCF a year, but he used 140 CCF. So if you go to the column on the right side of that first gray area, the percent current, in that particular year, he's going to pay 51% of what he used. The next person pays, his rate doesn't change that much. He's going to pay about what he used to pay the old way of calculating, or the current way. And then lastly, the snowbird in that first year is going to pay something in the order of 30% of with this new way of calculating. So what you wind up collecting from those people is $1,199. You have a shortfall of $1,032 that you still have to pay Bridgeport. So you're going to change your rates. You're going to increase your rates to balance everything out. And those last couple rows in the bottom of the sheet, you see that your shortfall of $1,000 and change means your rate would go up 7.37 if you're per CCF. So if your current rate is $5.74, you're going to add your shortfall, and you're going to wind up paying 13, or each person is going to pay $13.11 per CCF. So go to the far right column. You see how that starts to affect people's bills. And if we just jump right to all the way to the right where percent current, someone who uses water on an average basis, that person's bill stays about the same, 98% compared to what is happening now. It's somebody who's conservative and is, or only one person living in a home, their bill is going to essentially double. And then the snowbird type person is going to pay half of what they pay now. So I was telling a story for each of these types of people, but basically, to summarize, you are paying Bridgeport a certain amount of money no matter what. How you distribute it now is fair in that it is based on what somebody draws out of their faucet. So someone who waters their lawn more will pay more. Someone who has a pool, someone who has 5 kids was going to pay more.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Don't we also have some kind of contingency where if you water your lawn all the time, you can get a separate water meter if you're worried about your bill being too high, and that might be the best way to adjudicate this?
Yes, that was put into effect right around the same time that you started changing how you account for these values. I don't know the logistics, Bill probably does. I don't know who pays for the meter or how much it costs, but yes, that's the solution to somebody who uses a lot of water for their lawn and their, maybe their pool. I don't know how that works out. Washing their car.
For the person that's just using a little bit of more water, it's not worth it because of the cost of installing a separate meter, and there's a monthly charge involved in the meter, and there's a minimum. So if you add that all up, you need to be using a significant amount of more water to offset that cost.
This is Chip Barzin. Just to be clear, what is being proposed here?
Nothing's being proposed. This is an informational thing.
No, but I mean, what are the assumptions behind this? That your bill's going to be frozen at a certain level?
No, the idea here was there was some discussion that some people were thinking that it would be good to go back to the old way of billing the public, the users, and this is really, we're just reinforcing why we should stay the way we are.
Yeah, okay.
And I think
there were actually 2 issues. One was a suggestion to try to find some mechanism to provide relief during the current conditions where there's a lot of unemployment and a lot of people are struggling. And so we were looking to try to compare usage between the same period, same quarters between 2019 and 2020, just to kind of try to get a sense of what the impact was, residential versus commercial and everything else. And then kind of in the course of having that conversation, we talked about this as a related issue. Although I think to Christine's analysis, this is really helpful, and I think intuitively, some of us kind of saw this coming, in that we know we have to pay Bridgeport regardless of how we distribute it. So it seemed, I always struggled with the idea of kind of giving breaks to people that tend to use a lot of water and people that have irrigation systems, because invariably it's going to come out the way this shows that it does, in that the people that are conserving and that don't have those types of things end up having to subsidize people's irrigation systems, which doesn't seem appropriate. So I think this is good. This is great data, but it really just reinforces the decision that was made a few years back to go with the current system that we have, which is kind of good. I think good for everybody here to see.
Hey, Richard, this is Andy. If you remember, when I originally brought this up, I wasn't looking to change the way we currently bill, but I was just trying to offer to see if it was possible to offer folks, due to the current economic climate, a one-time break. I wanted to freeze the bill one time, and just try to get my hands around, could that even be done? Could we afford it? that's where it all started, and that's what I was trying to do. I mean, this is really good stuff, though, to show how we currently bill and why we bill it. But just so the viewers know that was my original intent, was to, like I said then, and I'll say it again now, you're home. A lot of people are working from home. Kids are home. You're flushing the toilet more. You're using your water more, and it's not because you want to, it's because it's the way it is now. I mean, this is the climate we're in. So, so it's not residents' faults that their water usage is going to go up, which means their bills are going to go up. So that's all I was trying to do when I originally brought this up, was to try to figure out a way to maybe if we could offset it somehow. But if we can't, we can't. We gave it a shot, and this is really good information.
Yeah, I think again, the only way we could really get our arms around, what you were trying to achieve, Andy, and I support that attempt for sure. I think the only way to get our arms around that is to really compare the same quarter between 19 and 20, specifically the second quarter, where there were a lot of people that were out of work, and even people that were not out of work. I was working from home pretty much exclusively. I think that's true of probably more people than.
Yeah, I still am.
Yeah, well, I am too, just part-time, not all the time, but so a lot of us are home, and so everybody's water usage is going to go up. Our bills are all going to go up as a function of that. The good news is our commuting costs are much lower, so hopefully that balances some of that off for a lot of people.
Right.
I worry more about people that are have reduced income for one reason or another, and then had to deal with having to homeschool kids and that sort of thing. And that's a lot of people. So I get it. I could see how they'd be great if we could fund sort of through our reserves, partially fund that increase. But I still don't really have a handle on what that increase is, because we don't have that year-to-year comparison.
Yeah.
We know that there's a seasonal increase every year.
Yeah, this is John, by the way. I apologize. My dad's in the hospital, so I was tied up with something else earlier, and I may have to jump off as well. So
no problem.
I just wanted to remember. So we're talking about the second quarter water bill, which is actually the third quarter sewer bill. Is that not correct?
No, it's the other way around, isn't it?
August?
In August, you're paying for the water that you used in
Right, the second
March,
the prior,
April, May.
Right, it's essentially a lag time of a couple of months.
Yes.
And when do we actually get that data from Aquarian?
I won't get it until August.
And that's when the bills are issued, and that'd be prior to our next meeting, correct?
That is our next meeting will be in September.
Yeah, we don't meet in August.
Oh, that's right. Sorry. Right. So the bills will go out. So unfortunately, we won't have the data to actually do what Andy wanted to do, which is to see how much did it spike from the first quarter to the second quarter, and then impact the bill that goes out in the third quarter in August. Correct?
Sounds like it.
All right. It's an admirable goal. I just don't know how we could do it in the absence of both a meeting, actually, which I'd forgotten about, and the data prior to that point in time. So potentially, maybe we could revisit it if this thing continues on into the fall and whatnot. Maybe, and depending on what they do with schools and everything else. Potentially revisit it for the fourth quarter bill, but it sounds like that's the earliest it could be done.
Right. Yeah. This is Andy again. Yeah, I think we should just, I think we should just, table this for now. And like you said, if we need to bring it up at a future point, then we'll bring it up at that point.
Yeah, I think that's all we can do. And again, there was the 3-month deferral on the due dates for now. Actually, I don't know, does that continue through the rest of the bills for the rest of the year, or is that just was that a one-time thing?
believe it, and Jim can correct me on this, I believe it was a one-time thing.
It is one time.
So that means the two that our customers will have two bills that are both due simultaneously?
With about a 30-day differential, yes.
Okay. And it'll be, I don't have the dates off the top of my head, but so that those are the bills that are due August 1st and then now September 1st?
Yes.
Okay.
So it'll be October, right? It's August.
Yeah, what always throws me is the due date is that the actual due date is always 30 days after the bill date, the due date that's written on the bill because of the 30-day grace period.
Yeah, I
Right,
think
I'm going from the start date. The start date is August 1. It's 90 days from then.
Okay, say that again. So 90, it's
If
90
the due
days.
date for the payment is August 1, it's add 90 days.
Right, but that's not the one that we added 90 days to. We added 90 days to the one that was due in May.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That was the one that was extended by, that's by executive order from the governor.
Right.
Yeah.
So unless that gets renewed, and again, these things can't continue to be renewed indefinitely.
Right.
Okay. I mean, again, I'm not sure. I don't know that there's anything we can really do given what we know. I mean, are there hardship provisions that individual residents can appeal, or that allow individual residents to appeal particular bills?
Any taxpayer can appeal their bill in theory, yes. But it's not a hardship appeal. It's based on some miscalculation of
Right.
the amount.
Okay, got it. All right. Well, Andy, I guess I'll ask you the question. Are you satisfied, or not satisfied is not the right word. Are you resigned to the fact that there's really not a whole lot we can do here?
Yeah. I mean,
I don't know what else. I don't know what we can do.
Yeah, no, I said before, I think we just table this for now. This is great what Christine put together. And if we need to bring it up in the near future, I'll bring it up again, believe me.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, hopefully when September rolls around, everything will be better than it is now. And but I'm not confident that that'll be the case, but we'll see. All right. Any other discussion on that topic before we move on? All right. Thanks. Next up, fiscal year 2021 budget for the Bridgeport Wpca. I don't know there's much to talk about here. The budget was approved, as Bill mentioned earlier. It says here the budget was included in the agenda packet. Is that?
Yeah,
true?
it didn't get in there. If anybody wants to see it, we can send it out, but it's a rather lengthy version, and as Jim says, we don't have appeal rights.
Right. And I think, you sent it out before. I mean, did anything significantly change from the draft that we saw last go around, as far as you know?
Nope.
No.
Okay, so nothing to vote on there. All right, next up will be a fun one. Beardsley Pump Station Force Main update and the corrosion probe report. Bill?
Yeah, this was out in your packets. This is just a tabletop investigation on where we should test. And I'm going to turn it over to Vanessa a little bit because she's been spearheading this with corrosion probe.
This, Frank, before Vanessa starts, I thought, didn't we approve, have we approved yet to go ahead and do this testing?
Yes, we have. They approved, you approved to go ahead to do the testing. So this was the first phase of the testing, was just to figure out where to go, which is,
Okay.
The next step is to actually do the testing.
And I guess just to clarify that a little bit too, we've approved, or you've approved, I think it's 1 day of testing for corrosion probe. So depending, and we can get into this, but I think it will probably be more than 1 day of testing that we'll need. So we'll have to put together a subsequent proposal for corrosion probes time. I would say probably for 2 additional days, if I had to guess, of thickness testing for the force main in different locations. So Bill, do you want me to try to share my screen to look at the
Yes, you can share your
drawings?
screen to show the force main.
Okay, everyone get their magnifying glasses out.
Now, is this the same document that's in our packet? Because it might be easier for some of us to just look there.
No, it's actually, this is a, wow, you did a good job.
Can you see it okay? I'll
Yeah.
zoom in too.
Yeah, we
when
can
I-
see the big text, as long as we don't have to try to read the small text.
Nope, no, you
It's
don't
fine.
have to, you don't have to read anything. So I think these drawings were in your packet, and we put these together. So here on the, can you guys see my mouse as I move it?
Yep.
Okay. So here on the right-hand side of my screen is where the Beardsley pump station is, and then we'll work on these graphics so that they're way easier to read. But if you squint, you can see this black line that I'm following along here, and this is the route of the force main that we've been discussing. So the top portion is an aerial that shows the routing of the force main. And then here along the bottom, what you're looking at is a profile of the piping. So the dashed line that you see here is grade, and the boulder line below is the piping. So this is something that I know Bill has gone through many times and that we touched on a little bit last week, but the force main as it goes along its route from the Beardsley pump station over to Bridgeport has a lot of changes in elevation. So I've called out a couple of things here. What I've circled in red, which aligns to right about probably here in Beardsley Park, was where we experienced an issue at the beginning of this year and replaced a damaged section of the pipe. That section of pipe was analyzed, and we have that first report from corrosion probe on the failure mechanisms in that location. And then it keeps going along, and then this is the very lowest point of the force main, and this is where it crosses under the river. And then it starts to pick back up in elevation. It crosses routes 8 and 25, and then has a high point over here, which is right probably about here on the aerial at Dale and Seltsam. And here at this first highest point, there's an air release valve, which is in a manhole. So this is one of the locations that we've identified with corrosion probe and already have funding set aside for to do some ultrasonic thickness testing at this access point. Which we don't need to dig a test pit to do, that we can do a confined space entry into the manhole and get some measurements. What we're looking at in this location is going to be for the crown or the top of the pipe. That's something that's discussed in their report as a potential for where gases can accumulate, especially if the valve is having any issues. Gas accumulating at the top of the pipe can cause corrosion at the top of the pipe. So we'll look for that there. And then if I scroll over and we keep moving along the force main route, now we're on the other sides of the highway here. And it's pretty flat as it comes down along, and then it's very flat here at a second low point. So this is one spot where it's been flagged for some additional testing at this flatter second low point. I think this is Stilson. Is that correct, Bill?
That's correct.
And then again, we start coming up in elevation to a second high point at Reservoir Avenue, where there's another air release valve. This is just like the one at Seltsam and Dale, so it's accessible. There's a manhole, and we have some planned work to do valve replacement as part of the pump station project. in that manhole. So during that time, we'll get corrosion probe in there as well to take some measurements for crown of pipe, top of pipe, and then the discharge of the, it's all downhill from there to the discharge point. So this is a really high level look. We just wanted to give you a sense of the total length of the force main and the route. It's got some twists and turns, and again, those changes in elevation. So I think the immediate next step here is to get that crown of pipe, top of pipe data that we have corrosion probe locked in for already at the 2 air release valve locations. And then we're also going to be looking to have Kovacs dig a test pit in the park so that we can get some thickness testing all around the pipe at this test pit location, which would be in the vicinity of where we had an issue previously, to try to determine the extent of potential issue on that force main pipe. And then I can stop sharing unless there are specific questions there on the routing or anything that's in the corrosion probe report.
When will you start with the test pits and the testing?
So the air release valve testing, I would say, can probably be done within the next 2 weeks. The town is going to be cleaning out those air release valve manholes, and Kovacs has a police detail squared away to do the valve replacements, as I mentioned, so that can happen immediately. And I will get a schedule from Kovacs for digging the test pit in the park and corrosion probes availability, but I would say we could do that within the next month.
I'm sorry, did you say you're going to start in 2 weeks or finish in 2 weeks?
I would say for the air release valve locations, we'll have results in 2 weeks.
Okay.
Could you put that graphic back up, please?
Yes, absolutely.
Hey, Bill, do you need some consents to dig in the park?
Yes, we're going to need to talk to Bridgeport. You know,
Who's got jurisdiction? That's going to be the Parks Department, or somebody else has to sign off on those permits?
I don't know. I don't know. I'm going to leave that to George, who knows people in Bridgeport.
Yeah, that's true. Okay.
This is Andy again. Could you see where your cursor is? Could you go to the left a little bit?
Do you want me to
Oh,
zoom
you're down
in?
there. I'm looking at the wrong cursor. Right there. Not the cursor. Well, there's 2 cursors. There's another cursor that's kind of right. Keep going to the left. Go up, 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 up. Right. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Right. Nope, too much. Right there. Why wouldn't you test in that area?
Yeah, I can answer that question. It's under Route 25 and a sleeve.
Oh. Okay. Thank you.
And similarly, I guess that low point that's right to the right of that is also under 25.
That low point right to the right is right before it goes up to Route 25. The real low point is at the river crossing.
Oh.
Which is right there.
That's, you're right, the other break that's labeled. I got it.
Yep. So the plan is to do one as close as we can to the river crossing, so we can evaluate that section as best we can. I mean, obviously digging up the section in the river is not really practical.
Are these, I mean, I have kind of a dumb basic question. This is a force main, right? So, I mean, are they generally full? Like how much is there, I mean, it's pressurized, right? So it's always pretty much full liquid.
Yeah,
and
you want
get gases accumulating at the high points, right?
right. If there's an air accumulation, you get hydrogen sulfide, which is corrosive. And so the idea, that's why you have air vents, air release vents at the high points, is to take that air out.
Got it. And then, and how sharp are those 45-degree elbows? I mean, are they?
45 degrees.
I'm a structural engineer, so I see something like that, and I think of a pressurized pipe. It just seems like those would naturally be the weakest links. But I'm just
Well, there's
curious.
actually, if you look at the lower left of Vanessa's screen there, you can see that it not only does it 45 up and it turns. So there's multiple bends there. There's a couple. Yeah, there's a bend that way, but there's also a bend up underneath the river. So this is a tricky part there.
Yeah. I mean, does the diameter actually shrink down like that, or is that just a graphical?
No, that's a graphical because the scale horizontal and vertically are not the same.
Gotcha.
Is the pipe in the river or below the river?
Below the river.
No. Do you know how far below? Just curious.
If I had to venture to say, are those 10-foot
Yeah,
grids there?
This is 10 foot, so
So it's probably 5 foot from the bottom to the bottom, guessing.
Okay.
I think it's
It is.
marked, right? Is that, if you go back to where the river is? Oh, never mind. Sorry.
5 feet.
This is Scott. I have an off question. Any plans in the future for doing this and other pipes that might be at risk?
It's something we should strongly consider for the other force mains that we have in town, because we do have 13 pump stations. That means we have 13 other force mains. This is by far the largest and the longest. Some other ones that we have are not as old. There's some of them are plastic, but there are still some that are ductile iron. So yes, this should be something that we should be looking at. But I think that we need to address this one because it's the oldest and the most critical.
So can we bring it up at a next meeting, or maybe 2 meetings from now, coming up with a schedule on a regular basis? We look at occasional pipes at risk.
Well, it's not taking them out of service is the only way that you can actually inspect it is take the line out of service, and there's the force mains don't have redundancy, so you have to do pump arounds to do it. So we're going to have to come up with a program of how we're going to actually inspect these. It's not a simple task.
You have a program set up for your pump stations, all of them, as well as your collection system, the gravity side. The force main side, as Bill's indicating, is more involved in dealing with and more costly in dealing with the asset management, but it certainly can be worked in.
Yep.
Any idea roughly what a cost would be if we identified the pipe that burst before it did and we fixed it? What's the cost differential there? And is it worth spending that money to look at prospectively?
So that's the tricky question, right? So you're even dealing with that here with the 400,000 that you have set aside to do a certain kind of investigative work. Vanessa has come up with a plan to approach this a little bit more systematically for a lesser value to understand, or lesser dollar amount to understand what pieces are going to get replaced and when. So when they start investigating these sections of pipe, keep in mind there's two reasons these sections are being looked at. They're got the thinnest wall and the lowest slope. The concept was to look at, to help use that information to interpolate or extrapolate what the rest of the piping system looks like. So it's weighing the cost to look at it versus replacement when needed.
Yeah, but this test that you're doing now, I think that's what we're talking about, or is, is there something short of taking a pipe out of service and checking thicknesses that's suspected, based on the profile of the pipe?
Yeah, I mean, we could put together a similar, spot check
in different locations to see what the thickness is and use that for data for reference on an ongoing basis. You know, maybe even put a couple of test pit locations so that we can monitor the thickness of the wall in some spot.
Can anybody give me a rough idea of what it would have cost if we knew this ahead of time and replaced that pipe versus shutting it down when it burst? What's the cost differential? Any idea?
No, I mean, it's a 2 mile long pipe. To replace it would be, I don't know, what would you think to replace that, Christine?
Aren't we saying $7 to $10 million for this thing, all of it? Let me get my calculator. So how many feet?
9,400.
Yeah, I would say easily construction will be at 5, plus you got engineering services on top of that and construction. So
It's 7 million.
I would keep.
What was it cost just to fix this hole?
Oh,
Do it $20,000.
Oh, okay.
You didn't put it in bypass though. You just fixed it and let it leak, right?
That's correct. That's correct.
Yeah, so you got off cheap. But we don't have to replace it in kind. There's other, you know, as you discussed last month, there's other things we may be able to do, right? Line the pipe to extend it, you know, further, you know.
right. So there'll have to be a cost analysis done. Does it make sense to bypass a lot of flow for a while to put a liner in? Or do you construct it with alongside of the current pipe without having to worry about stopping your flow and bypassing, and then just have a short period where you make the connections? So that's some of the things that will be looked at after this investigative work will be done.
I see.
Yeah, and I would expect that there's going to be certain sections of the pipe that are more vulnerable than others, right? So, you know, to do a wholesale replacement is not necessarily going to be the right approach.
I think that's what everyone's hoping.
Yeah. So, okay.
Let me just ask a hypothetical. You're doing this testing and you find that the pipe that you're examining is significantly compromised. Let's just work with that one, worst case scenario. What would be the next step at that point?
So in tandem with looking at the inspection and getting data from that work, like Christine mentioned, we're looking at feasibility of repair/replacement methods. We talked a little bit about lining, as Frank mentioned on the last call. There are other things that can be done, slip lining, directional drilling to replace specific sections. So that's advancing on a parallel track with the inspection work. So it's not like we're just going to wait to get data and then say, now what do we do? We're coming up with options, moving alongside of that. So that way, when we have that information, that can be presented to the board to determine next steps.
Okay, because we had a failure already. I mean, there's obviously weak sections of this pipe, and that probably is not the only one.
Yep, you're absolutely right.
Okay, because I just don't want to do it sequentially and then find out we have another burst somewhere.
I wholeheartedly agree.
Okay.
And I think that's why we were pushing for, you know, instead of doing this wholesale evaluation of 9,400 feet of pipe, let's pinpoint it, target it at areas while we also advance looking at ways to address those areas, because we suspect we'll have to, right? So we're confirming our hypothesis and getting ready to take next steps as soon as we can.
Okay.
Can I ask Vanessa how our next meeting is in 2 months? I mean, do you think we'll have a pretty good set of data in hand at that point to be able to really know what the strategy is going to be moving forward?
Yep,
okay.
Definitely. And I think we'll be in a position then also to talk about options for repair or replacement and how to go about accomplishing that.
Okay. And I guess back to the other point about all of the other force mains in town, is there any, I realize it's a tough question, but is there any reason to be concerned about the second worst one out of that group at this point, or is it relatively safe to just defer that until we deal with all, whatever we find here first.
I don't think there's a need to be concerned, but we can put together a program along parallel with the other components of your system for an estimated fee of what it would take to look at each station as, you know, older ones or any other indications where we think there's a problem. And then you could plan for it in general. You can shift the investigation as necessary. You have a program set aside, you know, keep in mind spending millions of dollars each year for other parts of the system as well.
Yeah, this is Andy. I mean, we just finished up a budget, but maybe we can implement this, you know, like Scott was saying, you know, what he was talking about, maybe this program in the next budget, you know, start building this stuff, this program in.
Yeah, I think that's something we should look at.
Well, this is Jim Nugent. I've just wondered, since we're going 2 months out for our next meeting, if you were to find something alarming in the next, so you're talking about a couple of weeks for some of this testing, and I wondered if we, you know, I think we should circulate something quicker in the event that, you know, we have to make a faster decision about doing something rather than waiting for, you know, sometime is mid-September. If there's something that you find is urgent, I'd rather get try to get a quorum together to vote on something and not wait for, you know, 2 months if we have an urgent situation.
I don't know, do you want to pick a date for a tentative special meeting?
Well, I was wondering if we could just circulate the information perhaps, and if Bill or Vanessa or somebody says this is urgent, you need to meet, then we can get a notice out to people and try and get a date from people.
Okay.
Right.
We met earlier and discussed, even we share the same concern. You know, Bill's prepared to have pipe on hand when the excavation starts if it is really that bad, to make a repair right at that spot. So.
Okay.
Yeah, it's almost like a break, right? I mean, the Bill's not waiting for a vote of the board to deal with emergencies. If there's anything that's really that pressing, you know, he'll have to deal with it. And then, if, you know, just ideally keep us informed as if anything like that happens.
Yep.
Yeah, but Bill's only going to address the localized area. You know, when you relieve the soil structure around the pipe, it may fracture, right? That's what
That's
we're worried
correct.
about.
That's correct.
But
Yeah.
if we find, based on your best engineering judgment, that this thing could fail at any moment, I think that's what Attorney Nugent's talking about. I think we need to be prepared to come in and make a quick decision.
That's right, because you identified different options that we could choose for a longer term solution rather than just an emergency repair.
Right.
So if that's something that the commission has to authorize, it's going to need a vote. So if that's what you find, I'd like to find out sooner than later and see if we can get a meeting scheduled if need be. I mean, it's all remote. We can do it from anywhere if people are away. So.
Yeah, true.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Any other discussion on that? There's no motion. All right, thank you, Vanessa and Christine. Next up, Beardsley Pump Station Rehab update.
Yes, currently they just actually last week finished paving the parking lot and the driveway. Currently everything is pretty much done. There is more HVAC to do, as I mentioned earlier tonight. Some electrical for the HVAC. Floor tiles, which seem to be holding up the finishing touches, which it seems a little absurd that we can't finish the station from floor tiles, but and then working on doing the structural repairs to the concrete floor. But other than that, we're pretty much there. All right, Vanessa? Yeah.
Okay, so no more change orders.
Well, I'm not gonna say no more, you know, never say never. There probably will be, because it's also tied into the force main. So we may have change order for that.
All right. Now, I mean, have there been like a final punch list and everything done?
No, we haven't done a final, well,
The
I
punch
haven't
list
seen
is
it.
in progress, but it's not a final punch list yet, and we'll share that with you, Bill, too. I know Allison's been working with Kovacs to get some punch list items addressed. So it's drafted, and they're working on that completion.
How's the project compare to its contractual completion date? Are you on schedule?
I think it's a little bit over. I mean, we had a time delay because of the punctured force main that we found, and we had to uncover back in last July that threw about a month into the schedule. We've had some other delays that, you know, have added to it, but I don't know if we're really that far off. Do you know, Vanessa?
We're definitely off. I think it was supposed to be done, I want to say at the end of March, if I had to guess. But when, like you said, Bill, you add in some of those delays, I know we lost a little bit of time when we worked with Kovacs to reconfigure the interior space. That was one of the items in this change order 3 package that was approved this evening. That set us back a little bit as well. So they have been definitely working diligently. I think we lost a little bit of time before they mobilized, also in just getting submittals together and all of that. But they are committed to finishing, and I think we're almost out of the woods here.
Have they put you on notice of delay?
No, they've agreed to no cost time extensions to just finish the project with no additional cost accrued to the contractor or paid by the town. So they're just looking to finish and get out of there.
So you have a change order to that effect, or?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, we have documentation for no cost changes and time
Good.
extension.
So then we are on schedule as far as contractually with the contractor.
Yes.
Thanks.
Any concerns? I know we've kind of talked a little bit and maybe joked a little bit about what happens when we crank these pumps up to capacity. Is there any additional data? Have there been any information at all about the issues with the piping because of this additional pumping capacity we're going to have, or we now have?
Well, currently the large pumps are maximized at 60% capacity. So far we haven't had any problem.
Okay.
So you haven't had an operational problem being only operating at 60% capacity?
No, because the large pumps are really only kick in on extreme circumstances. For the most part, the 45 horsepower motors are usually sufficient. But when you get a heavy flow, the large pump will kick in and it'll only run a very short time, and then it'll pass it back to the smaller pumps.
Okay, good. All right, anything else on Beardsley before we move on? Hearing none. Next item, Old Town and Reservoir pump station updates.
Old Town Reservoir, Vanessa has sent me some plans to review, and we're getting close. We should be out to bid probably by the mid to late August.
Okay, good. Now, when are those bids due? So they probably will not be in before our next meeting, correct?
No, that's for sure. I mean, you have to give the contractor at least 5 weeks to put together the package for the bid.
Okay.
So more than likely, our next meeting we'll be able to talk about it.
Okay. Very good. Anything else on that? Any other questions, concerns? All right, moving on. Any other business that maybe come before the authority? Does anybody have anything else they'd like to raise at this point?
Yeah, Scott, I have one, maybe going to Jim, but I don't know. Are we one of the bodies that should be trying to figure out the long-term plans between us and Bridgeport and us building a new water cleaning system? Or who does that? Where's it go?
Treatment plan? Yeah, that is the WPCA's purview, yeah.
So isn't that a really important thing for us to be dealing with now?
If you want my opinion, yeah, it is. It
It
is
is.
definitely important.
It
Yeah,
is, and we talked about that, but not recently.
So
I
should
mean,
that
they-
be something that we should be talking on a meeting to meeting basis and maybe coming up with some ideas or plans or something?
Well, I'll turn it back to Christine because I think I see her mouth moving. She's ready to jump in. I know that she's been involved in discussions with Fairfield and so.
Yeah, that's a big subject, but yeah, so it's been ongoing for, I'd say, actually closer to 10 years. The concept of either building your own plant or the ideal situation would be for Trumbull to have a fair and equitable relationship with Bridgeport. That has always been the goal. And that's a financial type of relationship. Next to that, we looked at the feasibility of constructing your plant. Then more recently, going to Fairfield or going to Stratford or both. So those have been all looked at a high level. We started getting a little bit closer to the weeds on the Fairfield option. Recent transitions on the Fairfield side has had that progress slow down a little bit, but it sounds like, I think what would be beneficial, and I'll say most of this is often done in an executive session, is for an overview for the new board members, new legal, et cetera, to understand what has happened to date and what some next steps are that are planned for moving those ideas forward. Is that enough of an overview? Does that help?
Yeah, I guess I've been hearing about this, I think 14, 15 years now. And kind of nothing's happened. Of course, I'm a newbie here, but it seems like nothing's happening, nothing's going forward. And all of a sudden there's going to be some event and all of a sudden we have to scramble. I'd rather be planning than scrambling.
Yeah, there has been some planning, and a lot of it, again, is done in executive session. A lot of it has been legally driven. So with these new contracts that have been developed, the contract that you're in now is, I believe, a 10-year contract and was written with the understanding that Trumbull's going to be looking at alternatives to what's happening at this current time, to the current arrangement.
And the 10-year contract started when?
I have it.
2016, I believe.
So you're going into almost your third or fourth year of your discounted rate. Yep.
So when we last talked in public session, we talked about the fact that Bridgeport hasn't taken steps yet to implement an interceptor, but it would be estimated to be around between 300 to 500 million. And the concern was that we would have to pay for that.
Right, so they are a combined sewer system. Their long-term control plan, 10 years ago was estimated at that value on how to deal with their combined system. You pay the same rate that everyone in Bridgeport pays, and everyone in Bridgeport and Trumbull pays for the upgrades to the treatment plant, the collection, and the transportation system. So that has been the concern.
But that's not really treatment. That's a modification to their infrastructure.
Right. So right now their budget is at $43 million. So Bridgeport and Trumbull pay all the people, I'll say residents, but we know it's not just residents, pay the same amount to fulfill that budget of $43 million. So if you notice in the spreadsheet I created, there was that column for B and a column for T. You saw how much of your annual costs go to Bridgeport versus how much stays in the town of Trumbull. I also had at the top, keep in mind, that was all based on last year's rate. Your rates are starting to go up. There's projections for the rates to continue to go up. So all of that has been factored into these analyses that have happened.
What would happen to the rate if they did have to do, eventually the state's going to make them do it, right?
Right. I don't know what their current approved plan is. We haven't gone back and talked to them more recently, but the rate is projected to get significantly higher.
What does significantly higher mean?
If you're at $5 now, if it, 13, 15, I don't have the numbers in front of me. They're part of it alone. we're talking 20, 30-year window. We're talking long-term investments.
So would our rates double? I mean, I'm just trying to get a sense of what would happen if they have to actually put an interceptor in, which they will eventually have to do.
Yes, your rates are going to go up as high as all their work is going to cost them. You know, and these analyses are done based on an anticipated grant amount or not a grant amount. It depends on what funding they have. It depends on what DEP approves for them. They could phase it in differently than they currently have it planned. So there's a little bit of a moving target. There's been talk of how the system or how the upgrades are paid for, whether everyone pays for them or not. That's where that's.
Any idea what happened when Hartford did this, what, 15, 20 years ago, whatever?
They're just doing it now.
They're doing it now.
Oh, they're just doing it now? Okay.
Yeah, these things
What-
move slowly.
And what's happening, what happened with them? Can we extrapolate to us?
You can. I know anecdotally what's happening. I know that some of their costs go through the tax, the taxes to the member towns, and then there's special costs put onto their water and sewer bill. So
I guess the question is, I guess that they're only in phase one, right? What I saw on the website. And it was in excess of 300 million. And you're saying is that's all been absorbed by the MDC, which is the 20 town or so group that handles that system?
I think you're probably talking about the tunnel, which is under construction right now. There's all other components that have been constructed already. There's pump stations, there's treatment plant work. So I can't speak to the big picture other than I know that it's very large and some of it's been done and more of it has to come. Similar to Bridgeport, there's other communities in the state that are in that same situation, Norwich, et cetera.
Did the state pay for it or did they have to pay for it themselves?
The state and the federal government is involved in these kinds of projects.
Okay.
So it's a good question. You know, we can talk about giving everyone a little bit more of a detailed overview on what's happened and what some of the plans are to move forward.
All right, thanks, Christine. Yeah, great question, Scott. I mean, that is something that periodically we revisit, but it is a slow. It's like an aircraft carrier making a U-turn. It's a very long, difficult process. And I think the only thing I could add to that is that I mean, I was around when we were dealing with or establishing the new contract with Bridgeport, and you know, it was a very frustrating process, and we weren't really able to understand like why they were taking the position that they were on some things. So, you know, we're hopeful, as Christine said, that's kind of the path of least resistance, is to continue what we're doing, at least in the medium term, but long term maybe not, just because we know that they're going to be looking at astronomical costs moving forward. So yeah, it's worth bringing that up periodically for sure. Anything else on that, or any other business, or anything else anyone has on their mind before we break for 2 months? All right, hearing none, I'd like to call for a motion to adjourn. Do we have a motion?
I believe Andy just didn't unmute himself.
Oh,
Sorry, so moved.
second, anybody?
I'll second.
All right, Margaret, please call roll.
Richard Boggs,
Aye.
Andrew Palo,
Yes.
John Green,
Aye.
Charles Perezin,
Yes.
and Frank Rigneri.
Yes.
It's unanimous. We can adjourn.
Okay, it is, I have 8:42.
Very good.
Thanks, everybody. Enjoy the rest of the summer if you can.
You too.